Well, there was very little in it, so we should be in for an excellent race.
Okay, so Menu this time around does get the pole position point, and I'm quite sure by the time we've left Croft it's going to be another 2 weeks of domination on the circuit, because I am quite sure that both Knockhill and Snatterton are tracks that will easily suit me as the player, and I'm also quite sure I can feel the possibilities of me clinching a championship becoming more and more likely. So, let's now get on with race number 2 here at the Croft circuit. Red lights, and it's go for race 2 here at the Croft circuit. Menu is already out in front, as I would have anticipated, since I decided to only set 1 lap in qualifying this time, because I already seem to know what the results are going to be, and that I can say was a mess. If there's any one word I can use to describe what happened there, the most likely assumption I would think of would have to be a mess. Also, furthermore, Derek Warwick, of all people, is running in 9th at the start of this race, even though I am quite sure he will inevitably lose a couple of positions before too long. But at the moment at least, he does seem to be running well, and he is now up into 8th position. A position which I highly doubt he'll be able to hold on to. Of course, John Cleland at this point of the campaign has scored all of Vauxhall's points, so it would be nice if Derek could manage to score some points in the other Vauxhall, and then it would essentially mean of course, that... Oh, sorry, Jamie. And it would essentially mean, of course, that both Vauxhall drivers will be on the board, like both of the Ford drivers, and furthermore, I'll also be able to confidently say that almost every driver will officially be on the board. Meanwhile, here I am now running in 5th position behind the leading Audi of Biela, I think this is, as I can now see one of the Nissans straight behind me. And so, we begin our charge up through the field. Even though I highly doubt I'll be able to catch either of the Renault drivers, although in saying that, I can see one of the Renault drivers up ahead of me. It's probably not Menu, because, well, even though Plato won the first race, I'm quite sure it will not be Menu who is right up ahead of me, because, well, he seems to basically have my ass nailed to the wall, essentially, and he's probably gone out into the distance now to probably do battle with James Thompson, essentially, is who I would think it is he's doing battle with. But anyways, closing in on Jason Plato, who did manage to score a crucial win in the first race here at Croft, and it is fair to say he certainly certified the superiority of the Renault on the day, because... Oh, sorry Jason, I did not think you were going to brake check me the way you did, but anyways. So, up onto the podium now as we start lap 4. It is fair to say I've just been dominating the campaign at this stage. I wouldn't think catching Menu is going to be a possibility because he seems to have all of us nailed to the wall. I really do hope this is not going to wind up being as chaotic as the first race was. Although in saying that, I got spun by probably the leading Honda driver. Unless he has just decided it's a good idea for him to go straight into the wall. But anyway, I will still have a huge lead over Menu, regardless of what he does at this stage. As long as I can keep consistently running up front and scoring top 5 finishes, then I am quite sure, or at least finishing on the podium in most races, then I'm fairly certain it's hard to imagine a scenario now where I do not end up winning this championship. But either way, I have made it up to the podium, and it's also fair to say this is probably going to be another day where I end up fighting hard for the podium. And I'm also quite sure my points lead at this stage, by the time we get to Snetterton, is probably going to be at an unreachable height. Because I'm pretty sure by the time we get to Snetterton, my points lead is probably going to be somewhere under 50 points. Which essentially means, of course, well, looks as though Plato is pulling away from me now. But anyways, I think that's my teammate who is now behind me, Kelvin Burt. I'm just hoping that in this race we can manage to at least get every car to finish, unlike the last couple of races where we have not been able to see that. As I now overtake Bintcliffe for 5th position. I do have a huge points lead, but I can never leave anything to chance. Of course, once we get to Knockhill and Snetterton, that is pretty much where the domination will continue, and where at either one of those venues I am probably going to showcase what a pit stop looks like in this game. And I spin again. Oh, it was one of the Hondas. And now I've got one of the Nissans behind me. Well, looks as though the chaos is very much set to continue at this stage. But it doesn't matter too much to me at this stage because, well, even though I am running in 7th, I'm quite sure I can catch up to the leaders once again. I wouldn't think I'm going to catch up to the 2 Renaults because, well, they seem to very much be in a class of their own here at Croft. But I am glad to know Jason was able to win the first race and not Menu, because it does mean, of course, that I do gain some extra points on him as a result of him finishing, I think it was 5th in the first race because of his... and Jamie once again is a victim of circumstances. Although I really don't know who to pin the blame on for that little mishap. But anyway. Re-overtaking Thompson for 5th position. He was attempting to get back up to me and he runs very wide there up onto the banking. He was extremely wide there and basically well off course by the time he was up on the hill. But anyways, running in 5th position here at Croft, I am going to lose at least a couple of points to menu if I don't manage to make my way back to the podium. But it doesn't matter too much because, well, unlike Alton Park, this will not be a weekend sweep for him. I did beat him in the first race anyway, and I need to figure out how to stop spinning because this is really getting old. And of course I have these two guys right behind me. Welp. Shit. That's all I can really say. Shit. Meanwhile, I continue to lead here. Sorry, I continue to run in 5th position whilst I am behind the leading Audi of Biela, and I am having a extremely hard time of trying to keep this car under control because I seem to keep spinning for whatever reason. But anyway, I just want to get through this race without having a DNF, without having another DNF to essentially outline the chaos. Yeah, there is no way that was going to work. Well, good to know there was a bit of runoff area there whilst I was running wide. Don't really have anything to worry about regarding the championship, but again, you can never count all the eggs until they're hatched. I know very well I'm obviously going to dominate the next 2 venues on the circuit, which will obviously be both Knockhill and Snetterton. 2 tracks I know well, and also 2 tracks where I have technically had a history of winning both races in championship mode. And I have a feeling that's only going to basically cement my domination even further than it already has done. Let's see if I can finally manage to clear Biela. Well, he tried to block me, but he certainly paid the price for it, as he ran very wide whilst he was trying to throw the block on me. And one of the Hondas is now up ahead of us. It's probably James Thompson, since I did see Tarquini further back. But Coming towards the end of lap 10 now, here at Croft. I almost went into the grass because of how wide I ran through there. And it does look as though I am now closing in on the Honda up ahead of me. But once I get past the third quarter, the next 2 races, or at least the next 4 races after Snetterton, of course, will probably be some of the hardest. But if I can manage to come away with a sizable lead in both instances, and not lose too many points to Menu, then I should have a good chance of clinching the Showdown basically before the championship is over once and for all. Because that is just how dominant I've been. And I am now closing in on the Honda ahead of me. That is who else but James Thompson. I think the Renaults at this point have more or less run off into the sunset. I'm quite sure the possibilities of me catching them are very much slim to none. I'm also going to have to pause the recording once I've completed this lap, because I've noticed the FPS is not keeping up with the on-screen display. And Thompson, very much like his teammate, attempting a manoeuvre that was probably never going to work, even though he did try valiantly. But at the end of the day, he attempted it and he paid the price for it. Well, sucks to be him, I guess. But anyways, yeah, the Renaults have pretty much stolen the show at this stage of the race. It doesn't look as though I have any shot at catching them, but if I can at least come away with a 3rd position, then I would say at best I'm only going to lose, what, 4 points to Menu at best, if I can finish on the podium. Of course, I can never make any guarantees at this stage, but I will have to pause my recording for a moment just so I can get the frames back in line with the picture, because again, I am recording this on a laptop and not an actual PC, and not an actual computer. But once I do manage to get the money to buy myself a computer for the capture card, then I'm definitely going to get some usage out of it. So do excuse me for a moment whilst I try to correct the frame issue I seem to be having at this present time. Okay, so hopefully now I have managed to get whatever issues I had sorted. Check one more time. Okay. I think the issue has been resolved now. So with that, back to the race. So it looks as though the 2 Renault drivers have basically gone onwards to prove again why they are the all-conquering force of Croft, even though obviously Menu was not able to showcase that earlier in the race. But either way, I can afford at least one bad run at this stage of the championship, because I know very well that in the next 4 races I am going to unquestionably pull away from the AI, with both Knockhill and Snetterton obviously being tracks which benefit the player. And that player, of course, is obviously me. But anyways, so it looks as though the 2 Renault drivers have more or less proven again they are basically in a class of their own, as I hit one of the Ford Mondeos trying to overlap him. Unfortunately, he did end up being in the centre of the track when the contact commenced. So just holding on to the podium now. I've pretty much accepted I'm obviously not going to beat either of the 2 Renaults. 3rd seems to be the best position I can really claim, and even then, of course, it's fair to say I will certainly make the most of this, because I do have a big enough lead in the championship at this stage to say I can probably afford at least one bad run. But again, you can never count all of the eggs until they're hatched. And knowing me, of course, I very much have a date with the Golden Goose, considering how amazingly lucky I've already been at this stage of the campaign, as well as also being philosophically consistent on the days when I'm not winning races. So closing in on Plato just a little bit, but I'm quite sure I won't be able to catch up to him before this race is over, and I seem to be spinning a lot. Oh, and there goes the field. Well, I can afford at least one mulligan at this stage of the championship. I mean, I don't think it really matters if I do or don't have a result inside the top 5 at this stage. I can basically afford one mulligan considering the domination I've had at this stage of the campaign. And it is fair to say there's probably going to be a lot more spins to come, but as long as I don't fall too far back to the crutches of the rest of the field, then I'm pretty sure it's going to be smooth sailing from here as the 2 Hondas make contact. Meanwhile, I am right behind them in the crutches, just waiting for the moment to strike. And I get the bumper from one of the Hondas, and as a result he basically causes a pile-up. And I think one of the Hondas just went out. Yep, Thompson went out as a result of that wreck which just took place there into the corner. Thompson was an unfortunate victim of circumstances, after it was his over-aggressive teammate Tarquini who ultimately barged into me, and then I ultimately had yet another involvement as being an innocent bystander. Tarquini basically crashed his teammate when they were going through the corner, except for saying it was under different circumstances to how it happened between both. Oh, for fuck's sake. My head is not screwed on at all today. Yep, I knew it. It can only get worse from here. And I think it's now becoming a case of where this is a race I would rather forget now, as a result of everything that just took place in the matter of less than one lap, where at one point I was running in third, and then immediately afterwards I was just... And then immediately afterwards I was basically just slapped in the face when I was trying to retake third position. Well, at least I can say my teammate is up the order, which is one thing. Also, is that Menu who is leading this thing? And yes, it is, unsurprisingly. Oh, sorry Calvin. I was trying to give you the position from Jamie. Yeah. So that's now the fourth straight race where we have officially had at least one DNF. And this time around it was one of the Hondas who DNF'd because of the chaos. And unfortunately I once again had to be one of the victims of an accident that was caused by no doing of my own. But somehow I was still there because basically one guy just forgot he had teammates. But anyway. So that's now the fourth straight race where we've had a DNF. Thompson this time around is now the DNF. I've now dropped down to 5th position, so some points are going to be lost, but again, I did mention before I could afford at least one mulligan at this stage of the campaign because I have such an unassailable lead at this stage. I immediately know the chaos of this race will immediately pass once we have got to Knock Hill, because I am quite sure that both Knock Hill and Snatterton will no doubt benefit me, and then I will basically just be extending my lead again by at least 12 points over Menu once again. And that will probably be the biggest points lead I have for the rest of the championship, because, well, I'll still need to survive the 2 venues before Silverstone. Silverstone will obviously be easier than Brands Hatch, but again, Brands Hatch and Thruxton in the 4th quarter, they will obviously be the 2 trickiest races, and I spun out one of the Hondas. But at least I can say oh, and Menu is right behind me. Well, I am amazed to say I'm able to hold him up for as long as I have done. But somehow, he's not really managing to make enough of an effort of overlapping me the way I thought he would. Because somehow... oh, okay. And I think it just hit the wall for a moment there. But anyways. The Honda now re-overtakes me for 4th position. This is probably going to be where my record number of podium finishes at this point in the Showdown is going to end, because there just seems to be too much chaos for me to achieve finishing on the podium. Oh, and apparently I'm in the wall. Yep, that definitely ends any shot I had now of finishing on the podium. Well, at least I can say it's a mulligan I can afford. I can afford at least one mulligan at this stage of the championship. I am hopeful in saying if I don't spin too many more times, I can at least get myself back up to probably 6th position, maybe even 5th, because I do have a good car. It looks as though Bila probably is going to finish in 3rd, and I think Tarquini, who took out his teammate James Thompson a couple of laps ago, probably is going to be finishing 4th in this race, but 5th position is still very much YTBD. Although I would like it if I could stop spinning. And it looks as though that is a position I have probably just handed over. Well, at least I can say it's a mulligan I'm able to afford. I mean, it's frustrating, but at least it's a mulligan I can afford. And I might still be within a shout of potentially scoring a sixth placed finish at this stage. That seems to be the best I can really hope for. It's basically 6th position or nothing because of all the chaos which surrounded me in those, basically those last 2 laps. As I am now closing in on the Audi just up ahead of me, and where hopefully this time I can at least manage to get out of this one incident free. So it seems as though 6th position is going to be the best I can score. This is going to be where my remarkable string of podiums comes to an end. And yep, that was definitely an incident waiting to happen. But for me to finish this race in 5th, it's enough for me to say I'm not going to lose too many points to Menu. I already have an unassailable lead at this stage of the championship anyway. So this will be my mulligan race. I've got no chance now of catching up to Bieler, who seems to be ahead of me. And the Renaults seem to be having trouble with back markers at this stage of the race. But either way, this will basically be my mulligan race. As I spin out one of the Fords, and Cleland also runs wide there. I wonder where Derek Warwick is running. And also, did Menu drop down to 2nd? Is Plato actually leading this thing? I think Plato might actually be leading this thing. Yep, Plato is officially the leader of this race, as a result of back markers holding Menu up. Well, I can definitely say that makes me feel better than I would have been, but anyways. 5th position, I'll take it. This will be the mulligan race. Still have the unassailable lead though.
What a race that was, with a battle raging right up to the checkered flag. Now the race positions.
Alright, so Plato in the end wins that race between the two Renaults. Tarquini, in spite of him crashing his teammate out of the race, finishes 3rd ahead of Bintcliffe. I finished in 5th amidst all the chaos, ahead of David Leslie, Frank Bieler and Kelvin Burt. Derek Warwick finally gets some points on the board ahead of Anthony Reid, who completes the points. Tim Harvey was 11th ahead of Cleland, Radicic, Hoy and Patrick Watts, finishes 15th, while Thompson was racked out by his teammate earlier on. Now on to the points.
After a great day's racing here, let's have a look at the current championship standings. A great season so far then for the new Volvo driver. At the moment, he's putting the professionals to shame.
You know, Tiff, I think at this stage I am pretty much inclined to agree with you. Because this is a jaw-dropping amount of dominance not even I could have anticipated I was going to get out of all of this. But again, circumstances have played in my favour, and obviously circumstances are giving me a strong hand. So, 14 races down and still 10 to go. Next up is Knock Hill.